Hello, my loves. Hello, hello, hello. My name is Dustina. This is Spiritually Boujee Astrology, and we're going to take a look at the astrological transits of February 24th to March 2nd. Now, before we do any type of breakdown of what's going on this week, I got a couple quick little things. One, for everyone that came to see me at the Spirit Fair that happened on February 22nd, so that was yesterday on Saturday. That event's going on all weekend, but I was only there for one day, and I sincerely appreciate everyone that came to see me. I met a lot of new people, but I also had a lot of familiar faces at the same time. It was absolutely wonderful. That's that event closed at 6 p.m. and I did not finish for almost another hour, guys. Like, it was such a big event, and there were so many people that I ended up meeting, and it was absolutely wonderful. So in March, I got two more events already booked. One is actually here, still local. It's going to be in the Sand Springs area. I'll be sending out emails and stuff, letting everybody know whenever we get closer to that. And then, of course, at the end of March, there is going to be one in Conway, Arkansas, and I will be there all weekend that weekend. And that's going to be a Friday, Saturday, Sunday event. I am still looking at some dates in April. I have not made decisions yet, and I am looking at dates in May. And whenever I get closer to those events, being decided upon, I will let everybody know. So more events are coming where I'm going to be able to start meeting people again more in person. And it's been like an absolute fun process so far. So thanks for everybody. Now, if you have not had the chance to come meet with me at one of these events and have a quick session with me, all of my one-on-one sessions are still on discount for the month of February. An hour-long session with me is $35. A 90-minute session with me is $50. You can go to the website www.thespirituallyboujee.com, go to astrological consultations, and book the one-on-one sessions. They have a big label on them that says discounted for the month of February. So there is that. There's been a lot going on, a lot more coming, and it's going to be a great energy whenever it comes to a lot of that stuff. But I know just because the energy has been going well for me, because I know what I'm working with, doesn't mean it's going well for everybody. So let's get into the vibration of this week. It's a bit of a limbo. I'm going to start with that. In fact, limbo is not even the right word. I looked at limbo and I was like, that's limbo's a location. It is a place between worlds, but it's not a tunnel. It's not a transition. It's not a process. And I quite literally had to look up words to describe what this week is going to be. And what I settled on was obnubilation. It is the factual process of dimming, darkening, or veiling a place, a situation. It is the process, it is the transitional vibration, because that is a big way to describe what this week is going to feel like. In the very late hours of Sunday, the 23rd, going into this week, Mars turned direct. The Mars retrograde ended. We're going to have 5 days of transition, of the process, of having some things come to light that shift into what feels like to me a reaction. There is a reaction coming in the vibration, but the reaction is not immediate. There's a process to get to this reaction. And the reaction is going to come March 1st, the end of the week. And that reaction is going to be Venus's retrograde. They're so tightly back to one another that there needed to be a way to describe what this week is going to feel like. For some, it is going to feel weird, kind of foggy, kind of hungover, kind of shaky. Some it's going to be the build up to a storm, but not necessarily seeing the storm. And I do mean an energetic storm. If you have physical ones, that's a whole different conversation. We're talking energetic weather right here, not physical weather. There is a transition to this vibration. And a lot of people are going to feel that process, but they're not going to fully react, take that action to reshape and process until after parts of this week are either covered up and we're seeing the cover, or we're seeing the unveiling. There's so much to this week that is not clear energetically, but a lot of it is going to be the result, the consequence, the reaction to the final moments of the Mars retrograde. There were certain energies and certain conversations that had a bit of a snap, but for a lot of people, the initial vibration once Mars turned direct, because there was no other transits going on, was internal. It was an internal vibration, but it set the mood. It set the idea. It set something into the universe that is going to take the entire week to understand. And we have to see how things unfold throughout the week before we can truly, finally start the process of reaction. So much of this week is unclear. You will have people in your life that are making decisions outside of you that once the decision comes in front of you, it's like seeing something slide into place, seeing something fog the senses, seeing something that feels very obscure in motion. And it will feel very surreal at different times. And in the midst of all of this, we also have our new moon in Pisces, that new moon. A new moon that should be an eclipse, but isn't an eclipse. Because we had our Pisces eclipse last fall, September 17th. We had an idea of something that we desired, a picturesque vibration, a level of emotional healing that was put into our minds that we weren't able to grasp on last year, last fall, letting us know, instigating a certain amount of changes back then, for me to have what I desire, what I feel is going to work out the best, what I feel is going to give me the most hope. I have to make space. I have to make changes. I have to go through this process before I do anything else. And that's where we're at in the vibration. We're starting to pick back up on the seeds that got planted last fall. We're going to be able to start something, feeling something that is more tangible, that has more potential, that is months in the making. And it's very funny to say it's months in the making, because even the reaction that will come through in Venus's retrograde is months in the making. A lot of the vibration this week is the process of a long time worth of energy, a long standing worth of vibration coming together collectively all at once. And it is going to take the entire month of March to really get whatever that is going. So this week is a process of getting to a moment of turn, of getting to a moment of change. But even that change will take an entire month. And I'll explain this more in the month ahead forecast, by the way, to really unfold and take shape. So when I said I had to look up a word to actually describe what this weekend is going to feel like, I meant that. It is a week of transition, but it is also a week of stagnancy. There isn't a lot of movement until we get to the other side of this week, until we actually fully get into the month of March. There's so much of this vibration that it's like we need a couple things to come into shape But even once we hear them, we don't know how to react, respond. We don't know what to do. We have to let things sit, stew, stir, go through the process, go through the transition before we can actually come out the other side. There's a lot of this week that is not clear. Energetically, it is not clear, but I know that we have big things that are going to impact a lot of people when it comes to the vibration of this week. And it starts right out the gate. So we're going to get into the charts. We're going to get into Monday. Now, I know I'm going to have a lot of new people listening to me especially after this weekend. If you do not understand the transits that I'm talking about, if you hear me say sextiles, oppositions, or anything like that, you don't have to understand the transit. Just listen to the energy pattern that I start to describe, because that's going to give you more of an idea and understanding of what we're looking at than anything else. Okay, so first things first, the way that we are starting Monday, right after midnight, from midnight to 2 a.m. Central Standard Time. So I got this at 12:30. The moon is going through this opposition to Mars. You can see this right here. Now, Mars, again, that's newly direct. He turned direct just a few hours before, late on Sunday evening. For some people, it is actually the 24th, we've transitioned all the way over and you are in a new day whenever Mars turns direct. But for other people, it's late Sunday night when the moon is going to this opposition to Mars. And this is telling someone we want to change something. We want to turn something around. We have a bit of a shock in the system. We have some person that is having some type of news that kind of clicks a different reaction out of them, letting them know that it's time to do something different. And a lot of people are going to have some very tense conversations with a moon opposition to Mars. And considering that moon is in Saturn sign, and so much of the vibration right now is very focused on Saturn in the long run, just in the long run. I'll explain that more at the end. But there's so much of this vibration that speaks to a responsibility, a role of how someone's actions or behaviors or reaction has not been well placed, that it's like saying something that shocks them into correction, or it's having a hard conversation with somebody that is fully accepting of yeah, I haven't been behaving the right way. And that again speaks to this very stunned, newly direct Mars. Now, earlier in the day on Sunday, Mars also had a trine with Mercury, and that's going to continue as we go forward. And these two kind of happen simultaneously. So bump this to 1:30 a.m. Between 1:30 and 3:30 a.m. Central Standard Time, the moon is also going to go through a sextile with Mercury. There was certain communication that happened over the weekend, certain news and information, dialogue, transitions. Something kind of happened over the weekend that, again, offered a shock to the system. And whatever was communicated, I'm saying communication based off of Mercury, wherever we went, sometimes it had to do with travel based off Mercury, whatever happened in that vibration, that energetic TED Talk type of situation, it's like, yeah, I had confirmation. I had some kind of news. I had something happen with so-and-so, and it let me know that I needed to change something, that I needed to turn something around, that I needed to do something a little bit different. Like there was confirmation in the mix. And a lot of people, like once the moon comes into this play, like it's a third party to what has already occurred, but it's also very weighted because it is the moon in Capricorn. The moon is not emotional in Capricorn, and the moon is hosting that Saturn. And so in a lot of ways, there is a kind of a judgment in that vibration of, I know how you've been behaving. I understand in some ways, but at the other side of that, I don't necessarily agree. And we need to make some corrective action. And again, we're going through a process this entire week of getting to different phases. Okay. The next two things that are going to happen are happening simultaneously when we're going to get this over to the 5:30 range. So we got two things going on. One, between 5 a.m. and 7 a.m. Central Standard Time, the moon in Saturn sign, 19 degrees, 46 minutes, is making a sextile to Saturn, 20 degrees and 8 minutes. This has to do with giving knowledge to an authority figure, expressing something to an authority figure, to an elder, about an elder, very much about that process of someone in a higher position of authority and responsibility, having to deal with some level of authority figure in a multitude of levels. So it doesn't always have to be an authority figure over you. It does not have to be your boss, but it can be like talking to somebody who is an authority figure in their energy, in their process, in their business, based off of the moon sextile to Saturn. But simultaneously, the moon is also entering a square to Chiron. So we're still at this 530 range. Now the square between Chiron is going to be the most exact between 530 and 730. So we're still we're just starting it. So it's like talking to an authority figure, talking to a boss first thing in the morning. Not all of us, the human effect is all going to happen at 5:30 a.m. Sometimes the human effect is going to happen a few hours later. Talking to a boss, talking to an authority figure about what has come to light, what has come to terms, what process we're going to take through this week, with the idea that it is going to fix something. Moon square Chiron. It is going to heal something. It is going to get us past something. It is going to help us overcome the wound. Moon square Chiron. Not all of that's going to work based off of how the rest of the week is going to go. But it's like hearing a boss say, well, if we just give everybody a turkey instead of a Christmas bonus. This is why I'm giving you like the most obnoxious direction here. Example. If we just give everybody a turkey instead of a Christmas bonus, everybody will be happy. Some people can't have turkey. They can't eat turkey. No, most people are going to want the cash. So it's like hearing or getting some kind of guidance from a boss, from an authority figure of how they think something can be fixed, but not necessarily knowing just how much people are going to buck at that they're not going to come to terms with it. Not everybody's learning about the quote, quote, fix at this time. It's probably going to take a few days, but a lot of times, like you're that assistant, you're that person that, works side by side next to one, and you hear someone's bright idea and you're like, oh, that's what you're going to do. That's what you think is going to fix it. That's how you think you're going to make all of this work. Okay, well, let me know how that goes for you. Some of you are going to be the spectator. Some of you are actually going to be the one dealing with the boss or the authority figure. Okay. Some of you are going to be the ones that get pissed off by what gets said and feeling some type of judgment, kind of reopening a wound, because again, we can have those things tied to wounds with Chiron. One person might think it's a fix. Another person might think it's a wound. Okay. Moving along. As we go through the day, we're going to get closer to the lunchtime hour, at least here in the central time zone. Between 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. Central Standard Time, the moon is going to go through a trine with Uranus. This is not super heavy. This is something unexpected, some kind of exciting information. Moon trine Uranus, having some kind of unexpected phone call or unexpected run-in with someone. This is earth to earth, so it's very productive vibration. So it can even be an unexpected, outcome to something, exciting outcome to something. So this right here does not feel like it's the most terrible thing in the world. Just know that part of the day on Monday, you can have some very unexpected things, especially in that lunchtime hour if you're here in the central time zone. Just mid-afternoon for a lot of people, that there's something coming through that isn't necessarily what we intended, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to have a bad day. Okay. Moving along. When we get into the evening times, the next one's going to happen is between 8:30 p.m. and 10:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. So I'm going to get this to 9:30. And this is when the moon is going to go through a sextile to Neptune. The moon in Capricorn is very productive, very serious. Making a sextile to Neptune, we're trying to be serious about something that we're not completely sure on. Neptune. We are trying to get something handled, but we're kind of confused on how it's going to get received. We're trying to get something done, and there could be some kind of like last minute idea or inspiration of us like, oh, well, it wouldn't have been nice if we had done like extra bows and stuff on all of those little gift bags. Yeah, that would have been cute. I wish somebody would have said that to me like 2 hours ago, like, before I did all of this work. There can be something that is inspirational. moon sextile to Neptune. Some element will have responsibility or productiveness, something that we're working on and getting inspiration in some ways, but other ways it's like, oh, well, that's a little too late. And we're kind of confused of whether we should go backwards or not or try to redo it. Most people aren't going to redo anything, but this vibration doesn't have to be heavy. Some people might be like, I've had such a rough day. Now I need something to like, help me debug. And we need something that's just completely off of the wall. So we need to listen to that spiritual TED talk. We need to listen to an astrology podcast. We need to listen to something that takes our mind off of all of the weight. So it could be like a distraction energy. And again, part of this weekend is such a big process. Some people might be looking for something that they wouldn't normally look at to help them become more clear, but not knowing what they're looking for with that moon sextile to Neptune. Okay. As we go throughout the rest of the day, the moon is going to be void at 11:40 p.m. Central Standard. The moon is going to go into Aquarius. That's going to go ahead and take us into Tuesday. There's a lot of like little things going to Tuesday, but there's also a very big weight coming into the forefront of our mind. And there's going to be some very big things that start to trigger through this day. But again, I don't expect a full reaction. So we're going to keep this going. Between 3:30 a.m. and 5:30 a.m. Central Standard Time, the moon is going to make a conjunction to Pluto. So I got this at 4:30, and you can see they're right on top of each other. Here's the moon, 2 degrees, 45 minutes. Here is Pluto, 2 degrees, 47 minutes. Oh, seeing something that initiates a trigger, a fear, a trauma. Seeing something that lets you know that there is a power struggle. Now, this is happening in the overnight hours. Some people are going to have a rough time sleeping. Some people are going to know whenever you wake up first thing the next morning that you're going to have to have a very hard conversation with someone and you don't know how it's going to go. For others, there's going to be a meeting that has to do with something more positive because Pluto is a Phoenix energy. Meeting someone that has changed, that has transformed, going somewhere that has changed or transformed. That could be super mundane in the sense of like going to your favorite coffee shop and seeing that they just redid the interior, repainted over the weekend. You're like, oh, wow, you did a lot of work. That does not have to be a bad thing. For other people, though, this is going to be a lot heavier of an energy. And there's another reason why I'm saying that in regards to how the day progresses. Now, Moon conjunct Pluto is felt the most exact between 3:30 and 5:30. But if I go ahead and bump this to 5:30, there's one thing that's starting. It's not exact right here, but this is the closest you're going to see to exact. It goes exact at 5:53. And that is going to be whenever Mercury hits the conjunction to Saturn. The Moon-Pluto conjunction is happening in one of Saturn's signs. Mercury is our logical mind. There's something that can be very logical, communicated, a decision that is made, going to have a meeting with an elder, with an authority figure. Part of Monday could have been coming to terms and processing a bunch of things that requires us to go into a meeting with an authority figure. And there's going to be some level of judgment or something right here that can be very, very weighted in regards to that way it is accepted. And this Mercury-Saturn conjunction is very loosely going through its contra-ANTISCIA to Venus. And Venus is spinning in that 10-degree mark all week. She's spinning, she's stirring. So some of the communication, some of the decisions, again, some of the things that we think that we're going to be able to do to fix something, going back to what I said about Monday, we don't realize just how much the response is going to kick at it. But we still got to come to that term. We still got to make that decision. We still got to have certain conversations. And this is the conversation, a timely conversation with an elder, about an elder, having some kind of news, roles, responsibility of how something is going to move forward. For some people, this is extreme mental planning. You're not going to have a meeting with somebody, but it's like oh, you are going to have the download of like, very much like, I know I have to put something to plan, put something in writing. I'm going to have to write out this communication. I'm going to have to do this one thing. I'm going to have to do this part of the process. And that's what this feels like. It's very timely. And it can very much set the stage for how the rest of the week is going to go, because the entire week is the transition. The entire week is the process. The entire week is this obnubilation. And this is one kicker trigger element for either how we're going to change something, Moon conjunct Pluto with Mercury's conjunction to Saturn, or how we're going to piss some people off, Mercury conjunct Saturn, while the Moon is finishing its conjunction to Pluto. It's going to be a rough vibration for a lot of people. Okay, excuse me. Moving along this direction, the decision, the communication, it's going to render some results. It's just not going to be immediately seen for a lot of people. Now, as we go through the day, we're going to get to the evening time between 5 p.m. and 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. So I got this now at 5:30. The moon in Aquarius is going to make a sextile to Venus. Venus, stewing, stirring, not moving, stuck at this 10-degree mark. And we can be having a conversation with somebody and going, hey, how was work today? How's everything going? And we can just feel that vibration of tension of something's got to give, something's going to change. I'm about to tell someone off. I got this news earlier. I got some kind of direction from my boss earlier. I got some kind of information earlier that I'm like, I don't agree with this. But to react to it, the reaction for many will feel extreme, whether that is, I'm going to walk out on my job. That's extreme. Whether I'm going to do some kind of protest. When I'm saying extreme, there can be extreme responses that are building, but it takes us a few days to really wrap our head around what that reaction is going to be. This is talking to someone who is stewing, who is spinning, who is stirring. You might be the spinning one. You might be the confused one. You might be the one that needs to react to something, but you don't know how to react. And that's a part of this vibration. Okay. As we go a little bit longer, between 7:30 and 9:30 p.m., so right after that sextile to Venus, the moon is going to hit an exact trine to Jupiter. So I got this at 8:30 p.m. The moon is at 12 degrees 1 minute, hitting the trine to Jupiter at 12 degrees 3 minutes. So it's basically exact right here. So we feel this the most exact between 7:30 and 9:30. The moon hitting that trine to Jupiter right after Mercury, the host, has had this conjunction to Saturn. There is part of that communication and part of the decision of what has happened today that is impacting our wealth, moon trine Jupiter, that's impacting people, moon trine Jupiter, and specifically the moon in Aquarius hitting the trine to Jupiter. Aquarius has to do with people. Jupiter has to do with masses, how it impacts masses. And this level of understanding, this level of learning is going to cause some emphasis of how we start to move towards something. It causes a stirring. There can be some stubbornness, but it's also hearing how a decision that has been made in temporary energy, because so much of the last few months has been temporary energy, as well as the next month and a half, that it's like, it's pushing an idea of focus and energy that's stirring something inside of people. There's so much that speaks to pushing a reaction, but we're not immediately reacting. We've got ideas, good and bad, because for some people, we're vibing in this. For other people, not so much. But again, we're in a week of transition. Now, after the moon's trine to Jupiter, nothing else is going on to the 25th. We're going to keep this going. We're going to get into Wednesday. Wednesday's not super heavy. It's really not. We only have 2 transits going on. The first one is going to happen early in the morning between 10 a.m. and noon. So maybe not too early, but that is when the moon, here we got 20 degrees, 16 minutes, is going to go through a sextile to Chiron. I've got an idea of how we fix something, how we overcome something. I heard something has been bothering you, moon trine or sextile Chiron. Some level of influence, some type of news of either how we fix something, Chiron, or how we heard somebody was being hurt. Their feelings have been hurt. And again, so much of the hurt is putting up A lot of reactions in the vibration. For some people, we're going to be talking to somebody about how they reacted to something and whether that was the right way to react to something. Moon sextile to Chiron. But again, this has to do with how we fix something, how we deal with the wound, how we were hurt, and how we move forward from here. This might not be tied to anything directly from the entire week. It might just be something objective and a whole extra party beyond what everything that we're dealing with as an individual. But we will feel parts of this element. Once we get into the afternoon between 3 and 5 p.m. Central Standard Time, so I'm going to bump this to about that 4:30 range. Here's the moon, 23 degrees, 50 minutes, just past its exact square to Uranus. This is the moon in Uranus' sign hitting a square to Uranus. So here's the moon, 23:50. Uranus is at 23:35. Pushing an emphasis, pushing an idea, pushing communication, pushing an understanding onto another unexpectedly. Now, some people will have a push and it's exciting. Moon square to Uranus. Other people, though, based off whatever has occurred, over the last few days, we can be hearing something that we might have somewhat anticipated, but not completely. And it's like once we get to the complete element, now we're like, oh, there it is. There's that something I was waiting to hear. There's that response I was waiting to hear. A lot of times we should expect the unexpected with Uranus transits, but given how so much of this vibration comes through this week, this kind of feels like a lightning strike. We're still not initially reacting. We can have frustrations, but I don't feel like we're reacting to anything yet. I don't feel like we start to get to reactions until we get to the end of the week. So again, Wednesday's not super heavy. We can still have things going on. After the moon hits that square to Uranus, the moon's going to go void. So there's just not a lot of movement, but there's because there's not a lot of movement, we're stirring, we're spinning, we're stagnant. We're waiting for more things to be understood and to come clear before we can move or react to certain things. Now we're getting into Thursday. We're getting into the 27th. The moon is going to be in Pisces until 2:47 a.m. Central Standard Time. So I bumped this to 3:30. And now the moon is in Pisces. So I'm going to put this on my face for a minute. The new moon in Pisces is going to be on Friday. The entire vibration, once the moon goes into Pisces, is going to bring up some feelings. It's going to bring up some emotions. For some of us, those emotions are how we move forward to fix something, to take something back over, how we do something that's best for everyone. For some people, that's going to require some level of education. The thing about Jupiter, the traditional ruler of Pisces, is it's the doctor, the guru, the teacher. And as we go through the next few days, there's going to be a lot of little hits when it comes to what the moon goes through in Pisces. The moon's going to hit a conjunction to the sun, Saturn, Mercury, the North Node, and Neptune. Not in this order. It's going to go through a square to Jupiter. It's going to go through a sextile to Uranus, and it's going to go through a trine to Mars. And there's going to be a lot of movement that comes through once the moon goes into Pisces, because it's going to bring up a lot of emotions. And it's most people, whenever they do finally react to something, it's because they've had something come through that speaks to their emotions. Whenever it comes to the emotional qualities of the water signs, Cancer is the reactive sign. It's the storm, not always planned. Mars is, whenever it comes to Scorpio, that's very much fixed emotions, long-term emotions, the deep-seated wounds. But whenever it comes to Pisces, Pisces is the ocean. You never know how deep the feelings are going to go. And you never know how deep the fix, the frustration, and the reaction is coming from. One of the things I've said for a long time is now that we have the North Node in Pisces, it's been making that conjunction to Neptune for the last month. Now we're going to start building towards the conjunction of the North Node and Saturn. That's going to be more part of what we deal with in March. But so much of the vibration of what we deal with in March is going to be focused on Pisces and Aries. Once the moon goes into Pisces, There will be things that start to become more clear per se. Emotions will start to bring up what we think should be a solution. It's going to bring up how we're going to charge ahead. And we don't necessarily recognize, whether good or bad, how deep this is going to stir us. But it is a part of that transitional vibe from the week once the moon goes into Pisces. And again, that's going to start on Thursday. So the moon goes into Pisces. We're not going to have a direct transit to the moon until the afternoon. And that's actually whenever we get to that new moon. Actually, I think I said the new moon's on the wrong day. I think I keep doing that for a couple reasons, but we do have one thing that's going to happen. Sorry, I went past this at 3:30 a.m. And that is whenever Mercury is going to go through a sextile to Uranus. Mercury just had that conjunction to Saturn. We had some kind of news, some type of information, some type of conversation that once we talk to other people about it and they hear those things, like there's a shock. There's something that is like very unclear to them. And we start getting certain responses from people or certain guidance from people that we're not entirely sure that we want to listen to. Some of those things are going to come from a very emotional, almost like projecting type of vibration of just like, if I was in your shoes, or when I went through something similar to what you've gone through, I reacted this way. You might be very shocked by the guidance and the information that you're having. You might be very shocked by the news of what someone else is going through and what is being communicated. So we do have some shock to the system that happens in the overnight hours. Now, the human effect is this can be something about late on Wednesday. It can happen early Thursday morning, that once it's communicated, it brings a very shocking emotional response. Okay. We're going to keep this going. The actual new moon is going to happen in the evening time. So the moon's going to hit the conjunction to the sun somewhere between 5:30 and 7:30 p.m. That's when it's the most exact. The new moon is exact at 6:45, but I always give a nice window. Here we have the moon, 9 degrees, 31 minutes. Here's the sun, 9 degrees, 39 minutes. So we're really close. And this new moon is loosely in a square to Jupiter. Over the next few days, the sun will actually build to its exact square to Jupiter. And again, a lot of the vibration speaks to some of the deep-seated things coming to the surface, building into a reaction that we're not immediately seeing, we're not immediately taking. But we're stewing, we're stirring. There's parts of this that is speaking to, it will have a wider emphasis. But what this is needs to continue to unveil itself. It needs to go through the entire process of the week before we understand what we're reacting to. Okay, moving along. I will do a new moon video later in the week. You guys know that I will. I'm not going to get too stuck on that right now. Now, that actual square to Jupiter between the moon and Jupiter is going to go exact between 10 p.m. and midnight. So I got this at 10:30. Here's the moon, 11 degrees, 57 minutes. Here's Jupiter at 12:12. We're not exact. It is exact closer to 11 p.m., but usually that 2-hour window gives us that nice human effect of when we can expect something. The moon is in Jupiter's sign, pushing an emphasis onto Jupiter, pushing a knowledge onto Jupiter, a desire onto Jupiter, a desire onto the doctor, the guru, the teacher. I want to know more, to know better. And this is the way that I think that I can do it. And a lot of this is going to have an emotional quality to it. And the idea is like, this is how I think that we can fix something. This is how I think that we can heal something. Might not necessarily feel like healing all at once, but this has an inspiration vibe to it. And it's like talking to someone that we see as the guru, talking to our teacher, talking to someone that gives us lessons, even if they're not our direct teacher, and telling them, I think that I can do this. What do you think? Can you give me your advice? Can you give me your knowledge? I know you've gone through this before. Tell me what your experience was. And this is not a heavy weighted vibration. Some people will be emotional. I'm not going to lie. It's a Pisces new moon vibration. But for other people, it'll be inspirational in the moment. Now, after the moon square to Jupiter, of course, we're done with the day. We're going to go ahead and get into the 28th. We're getting into Friday. The moon's going to still be in Pisces all day. Therefore, we're still going to be in the moon's vibration. And it is over the course of Friday that we get into a lot more of the transits tied to the moon. The first one is going to go the most exact between 6 and 8 a.m. So I got this at 7:30. And this is whenever the moon is going to go through a trine with Mars. The moon hosting the said Mars, now going through a trine with it. An emotional reflection of how we take an action, of where we need to fix something, helping someone overcome an emotional situation, helping someone overcome a frustration, talking about why I understand why you're so mad, why you're so upset, why you're feeling the way that you do, and knowing that some of us are going to hear some things that, again, like, if this doesn't give, if something doesn't give, I'm going to have to do this. I'm going to have to react this way. I'm going to have to make some kind of change. Well, I don't necessarily know that I agree with that, but I understand why you feel said way. And that is a big part of the vibration. Some of us, we might be talking to someone, hearing that they're wanting to turn something around, but they don't know what it takes to do it, or they don't know that they can do all of the things that they need to do. And some of us are just in a place of emotional understanding, emotional aid, or telling something to someone that, again, is going to stir a reaction. Please note how I said that. The 28th, this day, Friday, it is the last day of Venus being direct. And Venus is about to go retrograde in Mars's sign. This little point right here can be a bit of an Easter egg point of letting us know we're about to react to something. We're stewing and stirring, about to react to something, but we haven't fully made the reaction quite yet. We're about to. We just need a little bit more gas in the system. It's about to happen. Okay, moving along. Between 11:30 and 1:30, so get this to that lunchtime hour, got it at 12:30 now, the moon is going to hit a conjunction to Saturn. Having a meeting with the boss, having a meeting with the authority figure, having a meeting with someone who has the say so and the wherewithal. Now, what I said at the beginning of the episode is like, there's going to be a lot of this emphasis that speaks to Saturn this week. We had that Mercury-Saturn conjunction on Monday. Now we're getting into this right here where the moon's hitting those conjunctions to Mercury and Saturn. Mercury and Saturn. Right now, it's just the Saturn part. This can be whenever we start to, again, have more emphasis of something that we're about to react to. But we have to have the conversations. We have to have the information. We have to have something first before we can react to it. And that's what parts of this feels like. The moon hitting that conjunction to Saturn is coming to some kind of term, coming to some type of information, an agreement of some sort with the boss, having direction from the boss, from an authority figure, from an elder, about an authority figure, that again can bring some very deep-seated emotional energy. And considering Saturn's in a new place that he's never been before, this is new information. A lot of this week has new information that, again, is speaking to how we're going to react to something. Okay. Moving along. The moon's going to hit a sextile to Uranus between 4:30 and 6:30 p.m. That doesn't seem super heavy. Again, we've had these little things that have hit Uranus all week. So we can have that follow-up information conversation with someone about the unexpected vibration, about something that we were excited for or they were excited for. And it's like getting some extra level of news, some extra level of information of like, maybe something's not going to go the way that we thought, or something is going to go the way that we thought. This can have a bit of an excitement level to it, but it doesn't necessarily feel like it's completely a part of the rest of the vibration. There's something about Uranus that it's like we keep getting unexpected things, but it's not always impacting us directly. It's like hearing the other side's version of how the same energy is impacting them. And each thing feels a little unexpected and a little unsure. As we continue into the evening time between 9:30 and 11:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, the moon is going to hit that conjunction to Mercury. And you see this right here now at the 9:30 range. We're right at the start of it. This is having an idea, having some kind of communication, having the forethought that is going to speak layers, rounds, and levels to what's going to happen over the next month. Why do I say that? Because of what happens right around this time and what's going to happen the next day when we get into Saturday. Right after this Moon Mercury conjunction, Mercury is going to go into shadow. It's actually exact on the 1st, but I can't ignore the fact that we have this Mercury Moon conjunction that's building towards a North Node conjunction. Some of us are going to feel very compelled to take some kind of decision, to communicate something that we feel very compelled to take an action or a reaction. And for some people, the human effect is going to be Friday evening. For other people, it's going to be a part of the 1st. Now I'm going to keep this going. We're going to get on the 1st. The reason we're going to get on the 1st is because the conjunction to the moon in the North Node, it's exact between 11 p.m. on the 28th and 1 a.m. on March 1st. So that North Node vibration, that compelling vibration, and then again, this is right as Mercury's entering shadow, like vibration. For a lot of people, the conversations, the decisions, the connection of whatever happened Friday night is setting a lot of the stage for everything we're reacting to throughout the month of March. The month of March is a reaction. And I will cover this more in the month ahead forecast. I'll talk a little bit more in the closing, but there's a reaction coming. And once we get into the weekend, we're a lot more aware of a reaction. We're fueled to react to something. So we're going to keep this going. Now, the moon's going to make a conjunction to Neptune between 1:30 and 3 a.m. Central Standard Time. Sorry, 1 a.m. and 3 a.m. I got it at 1:30 on the screen. And here's the moon, 28 degrees, 32 minutes. Here's Neptune, 28:54. We're not quite exact right here. It's closer to 2 a.m. that it's the most exact. But Neptune has this veiling energy of like, we're very fueled. And for some of us, it's going to be fueling a belief because of Neptune. For other people, it's going to be fueling a lie because it's Neptune, a lie, a fraud, a deception. For other people, it is going to be a major idea that kind of takes shape over the course of the entire weekend, because we're also building to Mercury's conjunction to Neptune. We're building to, we still have the North Node conjunct Neptune while we're doing this. So that there's so much of this that speaks to clouding judgment or clouding the mind or inspiring. For you more emotionally and empathic and intuitive, this can be an inspiration energy of how we have to reshape something to make it go right, to make it turn around, to make it be better. It really kind of depends on where we're at this evening. For some, it is an inspired vibration. For others, it is a very deep-seated belief that I have to do something. I have to take an action. The moon's conjunction to Neptune again between 1 and 3 a.m. Central Standard Time. I'm going to bump this now at 3:52 a.m. So I'm going to bump this to 4:30. The moon is going to go into Aries. And for the next few days with the moon in Aries, this is whenever Venus is going to turn direct once that moon goes into Aries. There is an action, there is a reaction that is going to come through. Once the moon goes into Aries, it is also back in mutual reception to Mars, but now a newly direct Mars. Now, Mars is stewing and spinning and stirring right there at that 17-degree mark. So we're trying to get our feet about us. We're trying to get something real solid right here, but it's not necessarily completely solid. But there is a fueling, there is an action, there is a reaction that is going to come through. And a lot of that reaction is how we're going to overcome any type of emotional triggers that have happened throughout this entire week. Once that moon goes into Aries, which coincides with the vibration of how Venus is turning direct, this is when we're going to be more aware of the reaction, the result, the response, the consequences, whether intended or unintended, that is setting the stage for the entire month of March once that moon goes into Aries. And it's happening in the overnight hours. So many of us are going to be waking up on Saturday, on March 1st, very compelled to take some kind of action. So that's going to be fun. So fun. Okay. Now, after the moon goes into Aries, of course, we're going to start to build a sextile from Pluto. That's going to go the most exact between 7:30 and 9:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. So I got this at 8:30. Here is Pluto, 2 degrees 54 minutes. Here's the moon, 2 degrees 51. Like, it's very close to being exact, just a few minutes off. When it comes to this right here, Pluto is in Saturn's sign and it's in Uranus's sign. We can expect some unexpected vibrations. We can expect some type of thing that once we hear it, it makes us angry. Again, it pisses us off. It's got a bit of a trigger to it. We can hear how much somebody has been abusing their power. We're talking about Pluto now, or how much somebody has changed, whether we agree with that change or not. And it sets something into motion. It's definitely going to set some things into motion based off of how the day is going to continue. Some people are going to be stewing and stirring. Some people are going to be like having to do certain things to get the funk out of their body, and they need to be physically active, physically moving. It's a great day to clean out the garage. Do that spring cleaning, start doing some cleanup around your garden to start getting ready for whatever that's going to be. Like, that's the type of vibration that I'm talking about. We're not sitting still, and that is for damn sure. Once we get into the evening time at 6:37 p.m. Central Standard Time, so I'm going to bump this to 7:30, Venus turns retrograde. She will be retrograde from March 1st to April 12th. And so much of this vibration speaks to, again, a reaction, a response, a result, a consequence, whether we intended it or not, to everything that has occurred for months. And I will explain that in more detail in some of the upcoming episodes. I don't want to get too heavy on it on this one. But right after Venus turns retrograde, the moon's going to hit a conjunction to Venus. That's going to go the most exact between 8:30 and 10:30 p.m. So I got the screen now at 9:30 p.m. And this is whenever we have nearly exact moon 10 degrees 52 minutes. Here's Venus 10 degrees 50 minutes. Coming to a meeting, sitting down with someone, having your significant other who's just been cleaning the garage all day, coming in, sitting down, going, okay, I know what I want to do next. I know how I want to change something. I know how I need to react. I know how I need to respond. I know what I need to do. And there is a coming to terms moment, coming to Jesus moment right here. And for a lot of people, the response that we know we need to make is not going to be an easy one. And I'm not sugarcoating that in any freaking way. It's not going to be easy. With that moon conjunction to Venus, a lot of us are going to be very empowered to turn something around, and it is going to take days and weeks to do it. But we have to have that come to Jesus moment. We have to have that conversation. And for some of us, we're going to be talking to somebody going, letting them know, I'm not going to put up with your bullshit anymore. I'm not going to take something anymore. And that very much speaks to the vibration right here. The moon's conjunction to Venus, exactly again, between 8:30 and 10:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. We're going to get to the 11:30 hour. The moon is going to go into a sextile to Jupiter. Now, this is one of those carryover energies. For some of us, it's going to be late on the 1st. Others, it's going to be on the 2nd. It goes the most exact between 11 p.m. and 1 a.m. Central Standard Time on the 2nd. So for some people, you're going to just feel this late Saturday. For other people, it's going to be a part of Sunday. The moon's understanding something, telling someone that, hey, there's been a change of forethought. There's been a change of opinion. You're going to have to go another way. You're going to go somewhere else. So-and-so has just had a vibration change. Why do I say that? Because Venus was getting very close to a sextile to Jupiter, but it never went exact. So, excuse me, the moon having just been a part of that vibration, having just been a part of that conjunction with Venus, now hitting a sextile to Jupiter, knowing that everything else is in Jupiter's sign, it's warning someone, so-and-so's had a change of heart. They've had a change of opinion. And again, that warning for some people is going to be late on Saturday. For other people, it's going to be on Sunday based off of the moon's sextile to Jupiter right here. All right, guys, I'm at the tail end of this flu stuff. I'm not contagious anymore, but I still got to get some stuff out of me. All right, moving along. Now we are into Sunday. The moon hitting that sextile to Jupiter, like I said, it's a warning for some people. It feels like a warning. It feels like a push. It feels like some kind of information. It feels like an awareness that something is changing. And again, since Jupiter's hosting all of this mess, there's even going to be some kind of confusion in that vibration as we go through the day on Sunday. And that's mainly because all day on Sunday, we're building to Mercury's conjunction to Neptune. And that's going to be the first in the series of 3. Again, I'll talk about that more in the month ahead. But again, first in the series of 3. So there can be confusion to what starts to unfold on Sunday. Keeping this going. Between 7 a.m. and 9 a.m. Central Standard Time, the moon is going to hit a square to Mars. So I got this, get this to 8:30. That's going to be a little bit more exact. Here's the moon, 17 degrees, 39 minutes. Here is Mars, 17 degrees, 16 minutes. We're just past it right here. But these two are in mutual reception. The moon is in Mars' sign. Mars is in the moon sign. Mars is newly direct. The moon has just went through that new moon, almost an eclipse, but not quite an eclipse vibration in Pisces. We have everything else going through Pisces. It just had that reaction energy of hitting that conjunction to Venus, and Mars is hosting said Venus. This is talking to somebody about a reaction is unfolding. And it's like an understanding, like, yeah, that makes sense. I would be mad too. I would do that too. I would push for that change too. I would go in that direction too. I can see why they would want that kind of solution. I can see why they would want to make this kind of change. I understand the action, the reaction, this result, the consequence. I understand. And again, it speaks to, in some ways, kind of warning, and other ways, kind of giving more emphasis as to how we've decided to move forward. And that's going to be something I'm going to continue to say as we continue with a lot of these transits. Okay. Not too long after this, between 10:19 and 10:34 a.m. Central Standard Time, so I got this at 10:30, Mercury, again, its exact first conjunction to Neptune. First in the series of 3. The next time these two are going to hit their conjunction is going to be at the end of the month. So a lot of this is speaking to, I've got an idea. I have been inspired, Mercury conjunct Neptune. I've been told something that's not necessarily true, Mercury conjunct Neptune. I've discovered something that's kind of feels like a lie. It kind of feels like fraud. It kind of feels like deception. And it's not normal that I would have so much clarity in saying that. But here's the deal. Mercury is in mutual reception to Jupiter. Simultaneously, the sun is building through its exact square to Jupiter. That new moon a few days ago was the start of the process of building into the exact square. Now we're more in the exact square. Since Mercury has mutual reception with Jupiter, we are a lot more clear, even on the things that we're not clear about. We are a lot more aware. Some of us can be very fueled by a belief system. Again, very fueled and inspired to communicate something, to decide upon something. And some of us will be deciding on something that will not be clear for a while. But again, there's a level of inspiration and there's direction. With the sun hitting that square to Jupiter, it's the most exact, excuse me, between 11:53 a.m. and 12:40 p.m. So it's right after this goes exact. There is a light, there is information, there is things being shed, expressed, and talked about in a very, very big way. Now, simultaneous to this going on, between 12:30 and 2:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, the moon is going to hit that conjunction to Chiron. There's so much of the energy that it's like one transit back to back to back. And a lot of them are big. Mercury conjunct Neptune is a bigger transit. The sun square to Jupiter is a bigger transit. And then we get this lunar vibration of the moon hitting the actual conjunction to Chiron. It is becoming very, very aware of what is hurting us. but also having so much energy expressed of the hurt has now caused a reaction. The wound has now taken us in a certain direction. Whether this was the intention or not, this is the reaction. This is the response. This is how we, whether it is the collective or not, feel like we need to fix the situation. The reaction that comes through in that Venus retrograde will not be clear on Monday. It takes the entire week to get through the fogginess, to get through the transition, to get through the process. And so much of the reaction is going to be how we fight the process, how we fight the situation, how we respond, how we will react, how we will protest, what we're going to do differently. We know we're getting lied to. We know we are not seeing something clearly. We know something's not going the way that we think that it's supposed to go. Therefore, we must respond or react. It's time to react. For other people, that vibration is going to be an inspirational vibration. Not all of us are going to be doing big protesty type things. Some of us are going to be taking a certain action in our lives and we're going to be very inspired to do. And that inspiration is going to impact a lot of people, or how we connect to people, or how we make money. And a lot of that vibration of speaking to Jupiter and it finally moving forward and getting off of that 11-degree mark that it has been at for like 5 weeks. So much of the vibration speaks to, for me to feel more emotionally sound and more capable, this is going to be how it has to go from here. And there will be changes and shifts, deep-seated shifts that will go through the entire month of March. But this week is a transition. This week is a tunnel of moving through the vibration. This week is that vibration of what I was talking about in the beginning of Obnubilation. The entire week is getting to terms with the factual process of what is being dimmed, veiled, darkening to a situation that we are not willing to accept. There's going to be a response and a reaction to a multitude of things that are going to follow. That response and the reaction is going to create a lot of change. That will be the biggest part of the vibration to March once we're into March. But where we are at the start of the week is not as clear as where we will be at the end of the week. The knowledge, the information, the communication, the decisions, it is not as clear. It's going to take a few days to process, to understand. And a big part of this week, again, is going to have little shocks to the system based off certain decisions, but it will also have the clarity, little bits, but it's not going to initiate a full response until we get into March. This is a very interesting week. I don't want to call it limbo because limbo is a destination. This week is not a destination. It is a process. It is a transition. And it takes us into what we're going to respond to. But we are not seeing it clearly until we land on that other side. And we will be very fueled and empowered to go in a specific direction. And again, it's going to be based off of certain judgment calls from people in positions of authority, people in positions of power, people who are taking certain responsibilities, and whether they're doing the right thing or not is a matter of question. It really kind of comes down to what you're dealing with in your personal life. For others, you are taking a certain amount of responsibility, and some people are not going to like what you're doing, and they're going to react. Whether their reaction is real or not is a very different conversation. Some are going to be making very authoritative, concrete decisions this week. And it's you that will be taking your own action and will be doing your own response. The layers and the levels are going to be different for everybody. but there is movement coming after this week. We just got to get through this week. Okay. I love and appreciate every single one of you. I'll talk to everybody very, very soon. Subscribe.